Hey art fiends, welcome back to the channel. Recently, I've been trying to stretch my stylization in how I draw characters, and I've been trying to find new ways to test out new ideas. I attempted to draw some of the OCs some people on my Discord were sharing, but I felt limited to following a design someone else came up with. In trying to figure out how I can go about pushing myself, I thought of a fun challenge I could do that would also involve participation from you guys. On Discord, I asked people to send me very short, unspecific descriptions of possible characters. I will be creating a character that I think fits into whatever description you guys give me. In this first video, I have 4 designs that I created, and we will talk about my process and watch how I go about designing new characters. Up first is this description from Wolf, a soul guide with an otherworldly lantern. I started with some preliminary sketches of various ways this design could go. Starting on the lantern, I found some images of fancy ones on Google Images and did rough sketches of those exact lanterns. Taking what I liked most out of all these drawings, I combined my favorite parts into my own lantern design. Next was what the character would look like. When I think of soul guide, I think of the Grim Reaper, but I didn't want to go with the basic idea of what a Grim Reaper looks like, a skeleton with a cloak and a scythe. So I thought of something else that made me think of soul guide, and that is Charon. Charon is the ferryman for the underworld in Greek mythology. He takes souls across the river Styx and into the underworld, should they provide him with drachma, which is the currency of ancient Greece. So I looked up images of Charon, sketching out heads and clothes based on different interpretations of him. With all my tests out of the way, I finally went into the final version of this character. I sketched out a base pose, wanting something showing this creature beckoning you to follow them. Of course, they had to be holding the lantern as well, since that was a vital part of the design. For the head, I decided to go with the idea of the wrapping covering the eyes. I really liked the idea of this soul guide being blind to what is around them. I also wanted to go in a skeleton direction, but not just a pure skull for the head. So, using the idea of a very sunken facial structure, I gave them very prominent cheekbones and a wide grin, but kept the hole where the nose would be. I also added little hairs on the top of the head, not wanting to give them a full head of hair, but again, not wanting them to just be a bald skeleton. I wanted the body to be very ghost-like, but I do end up changing things when I add clothes. For the arms and hands, I went full skeleton, making them completely bone. Finally was adding the cloak over them. I wanted part of the tie around the eyes to be hanging down, but instead of it just hanging separate, I thought a great way to combine everything together would be to have the tie around the eyes actually lead into the fabric flowing around the rest of the body. For colors, I wanted to use cools in general for this design. Cooler colors gave a more ghostly feeling than worms do. I wanted the body to be gray since it was made of bones, so a dark blue fit well with this in order to have the lighter body parts stand out more. I decided the lantern glow would be a warm color. This way it stood out not only on the character, but it would also be a brighter light when this character is shrouded in darkness. I then thought to bring some of that into the cloak, adding a gradient to the clothing so that the dark blue slowly became an almost white color. This adds to the ghostly feeling of this design, making it look as if they are disappearing towards the bottom. I wanted the lantern to stay in the same color zone of the character, so the colors were also these cool blues. I did add a little pattern to them to just make things a bit more intricate. I then ended by adding this very dramatic shading, having the lantern be the main light source. With that, this was the first design I finished for this challenge. Next was this description given to me by MID Productions. Someone obsessed with the concept of jellyfish, generally aiming for a more graceful appearance. They love to collect seashells and generally love to paint them soft, cool colors. So on this one, my iPad decided to not record the first half of the drawing process, so I'm going to be showing the still images of the final sketches for you instead. So like before, I started by gathering reference material. I looked up images of jellyfish as well as seashells to get a basic idea of design and colors. I then sketched some basic ideas for clothing this character could have. I wanted to have the outfit be heavily inspired by jellyfish. So I planned some ideas of what a dress with jellyfish attributes could look like. For the seashell part, I thought a fun way to show them in her design was to give them a homemade necklace made from different shells. With my rough ideas done, I went into the pose of this character. Since I was going for an elegant jellyfish dress inspired look, I decided this character would be a girl. To incorporate that she is collecting collecting these shells, I wanted to pose her so she had just picked up a new shell for her collection. I then sketched 2 different versions of the actual look of this character, 2 hairstyles and 2 clothing styles. I ended up enjoying the second sketch more than the first one, the one with the shorter bob cut and the longer dress. To me, this one spoke jellyfish more than the first. Her bob cut represents the top half of the jellyfish, while the long bottom half represents the flowing stingers. With the design ready, I moved into colors. For the dress, I decided that the second layer of the bottom half would be transparent, relating to the almost transparent look some jellyfish have. This also made it so that you can see what's going on underneath this part of the dress, since I had planned to give her ribbons wrapped around her legs. The ribbons represent the stingers, but putting them on different parts of her body helped to unify her outfit together so that each part exists for a reason. Since this character had a lot to do with the ocean and seashells, I decided giving them a darker skin color would work best. Relating it to the orange jellyfish image I had, I then made her hair this reddish brown color. I wanted her outfit to be mainly blues, but unlike the last drawing, this was to be lighter shades. She was to come off as elegant, not scary like the other character was. After playing with the saturation and shadow for a bit, I found 2 good blues I used for the entire outfit. A lighter blue for the dress and a darker blue for all the ribbons. The transparent part of the dress is also that same light blue, but because it is transparent, it makes it seem a bit lighter than the rest of the outfit. Finally, the seashells I gave normal shell colors, but used an acrylic brush to add some blues on them that make them look hand painted. So after shading her, we have this jellyfish inspired shell collector. Our next description was given to me by Kiel. They suggested a gender non-conforming supernatural parent. To start this one, I looked up a bunch of different supernatural creatures. I then did rough sketches of a variety of these creatures, specifically ones I thought were the most unique or interesting and would be fun to play with in my own design. Like I did with the lantern, I then took my favorite parts from the creatures I liked the most and put them together for what this character would look like. I like the snake body a lot, so I knew I wanted that. I also really love the bat head and funky wings that the Kamazatz has. Something a lot of the creatures I sketched out had were horns or antlers, so I also added those onto this character as well. For pose, I really wanted to have this character holding a big bag. I wanted to go full soccer mom on this creature, helping to show that it's a parent, but also show that it doesn't care about gender norms at all. To spice up the tail, I added a rattlesnake look to the end of it so that it wasn't just boring to look at. For clothes, since I was going for soccer mom, I added this vest jacket, as well as a pair of sunglasses to spice things up. For colors, I wanted to dive into the snake look and make the focus green. But to make it a little more interesting, I added a gradient to it so that the tail half is lighter green, while the body part is darker. For accent, I went with a red. Not only is red complementary to green, but red can mean danger, which was definitely something that works on a scary monster design. For the wings, I went with a very dark green, since they are inspired by bat wings, which tend to be black and leathery. To add a bit more diversity, I put the light green onto the claws of the hands as well so that the gradient can exist on other places. I then went for this almost white color for the horns, also using that for the teeth. Finally, I used a light brown for the jacket since that is a very common color seen on those types of jackets. To stay in this green zone, I decided to make the bag a yellow. I went for this very bright yellow to have it stand out a lot. I then used that same brown from the jacket as an accent on the bag as well. Finally, I shaded them in, and I had created this supernatural parent. The final design for this video was given to me by Historical Musical, your typical cheerleader, but with an obsession for horror films that may go too far. I too am a big fan of horror films, but not in the way that this description was implying. Going full slasher film on this, I wanted to go for that super stereotypical cheerleader design, who took things way too far. Warning, this drawing does have blood in it, so feel free to skip to this time code if you don't want to see it. There wasn't a lot of research sketches I really needed to do for this one, since the idea behind this design was very straightforward. Instead, I spent some time figuring out what pose to put this girl in. The first thing I thought of was the axe ending in the first Zero Escape game. I won't put the picture up for spoiler reasons, so don't look it up if you don't want spoilers. But that pose is very iconic to me, and I love how we see the character holding the axe. So inspired by that, I sketched a very similar pose. I then tried another pose just to have options, and that was inspired by the yandere face popularized by Mirai Nikki. However, there was no weapon visible with this pose, and I I really wanted to have this girl wielding something. So I ended up going with my first idea and sketching out a more refined body. For the design elements, I went with a very basic cheerleader uniform and some sneakers. I wanted to give her this very high ponytail, and a lot of cheerleader images I was looking at would wear a large bow on the top of their head. So, following this, I also gave her a big bow to hold up her ponytail. I didn't want her to look outright menacing, so her eye structure and expression was meant to be very innocent. Going to colors, I wanted her to be as generic as possible, so white with blonde hair and blue eyes was the way to go. For her outfit color, I wanted something that would let the red of the blood stand out a lot on her, so I went with green, the complementary color to red. I kept it 2 shades, a vibrant green and a very light green, using these colors in her bow and shoes too. This made it look very much like a cheerleader uniform, not just some generic dress. Going to shading, I wanted to go super dark and dramatic. Finally was the blood. I had a lot of fun adding this in, having it not only dripping off the axe and trailing behind her as she walks, but also having it splattered over her body and uniform. I also made her eye highlights red as well, giving them a bit of a trail to really show how psychotic this girl is. With all of that, here is the horror-obsessed cheerleader. Here's all the characters I created with this challenge. I had so much fun with this, and I would love to do this again. If you want to see more of this challenge, please let me know in the comments down below. And if you want to submit a description for me to try and create something from, please join my Discord group. The link is in the description, along with links to all my social media, where you can find me and see other things I create. I have a lot of other character design related videos too, so if this stuff interests you, be sure to subscribe and stick around for more in the future. Thank you all for watching. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. All the things that the YouTubers say. Peace!